Let's talk a little bit about the issue of labeling and the issue of terminology as it applies to politics. So one of my contentions for the longest time has been that Republicans are masterful with language and driving home a point and owning their labels and making an argument. Of course, I disagree with them on policy, but in terms of messaging and marketing, I think they're fantastic. And a lot of that has to do with that guy Frank Luntz, who's the word man for the Republicans, or at least he was. And he would come up with a way to smooth over their bullshit, to make it seem like they're saying something different than they've been saying since 1923. And of course they're not. They're saying essentially the same thing they did in the 1920s, the 1980s, and today. It's all the same, deregulate, cut taxes, we love the rich, fuck poor people, fuck black people. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, but they have a way with words and a way with tone and confidence that drives home their ideas. Whereas Democrats, on the other hand, always run away from their labels and their descriptors, and oftentimes they're flat out embarrassed by these things. Well, my message in a nutshell to the Democrats is stop running away. In fact, turn around and run in the other direction. Run at the conservatives. Run at the Republicans. Own your beliefs and own your labels and argue for your labels. They never do that. They let their opponents define themselves. They let their opponents define the labels for them, which is why, again, you always see Democrats running away from it. So here are the two words that are most demonized by the right. And actually, to be more specific, one of these is a word that's demonized by the right, and the other one is a concept that's demonized by the right. And we need to discuss both of them, and we need to make sure that we turn the tables on these, because we shouldn't lose these, and we can't lose these. So the first word that they demonize nonstop is liberal. Everybody knows that. I mean, that's one of those words where hardly anybody self-describes in that way anymore. And now the new term has become progressive. And the reason why we moved to progressive is that there was such an aggressive campaign to smear the word liberal that liberals were embarrassed to say, I'm a liberal. Now, sometimes people make a little distinction between the two, and they say, no, progressive actually means slightly to the left of what you would call a liberal. Liberal kind of entails being slightly more centrist than a progressive. I mean, yes and no. Maybe you could use the terms in those ways, but in my mind, it's been more of they're just kind of interchangeable. But either way, it's certainly true that right-wing pundits and right-wing politicians have destroyed the word liberal, and we've bought into their framing of it. Well, we shouldn't do that. Now, why shouldn't we do that? This is the important part. Because the concept or the definition behind the word is not a negative thing. In fact, let me give you the definition behind the word. According to dictionary.com, the definition is, number one, favorable to progress or reform, as in political or religious affairs. Number two, noting or pertaining to a political party advocating measures of progressive political reform. Number three, of, pertaining to, based on, or advocating liberalism, especially the freedom of the individual and governmental guarantees of individual rights and liberties. How can anybody think these things are bad? I got more. Number four, favorable to or in accord with concepts of maximum individual freedom possible, especially as guaranteed by law and secured by governmental protection of civil liberties. If you're running away from that, you're a silly person. Number five, favoring or permitting freedom of action, especially with respect to matters of personal belief or expression. Number six, of or relating to representational forms of government rather than aristocracies and monarchies. Now, if we knew what the fuck we were doing, wouldn't we turn the tables around on the conservatives and say, oh, you're against liberalism? I guess you're pro-aristocracies and monarchies. And how will they respond? That's not true. What are you talking about? You say, no, it's not me saying it. It's the definition of liberal. This is a definitional thing. So if you're saying you disagree with liberalism, you're saying you are pro-aristocracy and monarchy. It is what it is. It's in the definition here, buddy. You can't just override it because you want to override it. This is how you make an argument. But of course, the liberals do not make these arguments. And also, here's my favorite definition for liberal, number 7. Free from prejudice or bigotry. Tolerant. Again, how easy would it be to turn this around on people? And to say, oh, you're not liberal? Oh, well, I guess you're prejudiced, and I guess you're bigoted, and I guess you're intolerant. Because the definition of liberal is free from prejudice, bigotry, or tolerance. This shows you just the basic fact that the word liberal has been demonized successfully. Shows you everything you need to know about how terrible the left wing is in America and making an argument and standing up for their principles, and how good the right wing is about it. And look, a lot of it has to do, here's the sad reality, a lot of it has to do with the right wing. They are more tribal by their nature. So when you're more tribal by your nature, you're more willing to support your clan, support your tribe, stand up and be aggressive about it. But when you're more open-minded and tolerant, it's easier to push you off of a position because you're like, I'm always willing to consider the other position. I'm always willing to hear you out, even if what you're saying is absolutely ridiculous. So we need to take back the word liberal. Start self-describing, even the word socialist. Okay, so now I'm not a socialist. And look, the definition for socialism is very varied. There are different ways you can interpret it, and it encompasses a whole bunch of different areas on the political spectrum. I don't describe myself as a socialist because I don't think I'm a socialist. But if you're a socialist, describe yourself as a socialist and argue for socialism. I'm a social democrat, which is more of a mix of there's capitalism in the mix, along with a healthy dose of socialism and government and the public sector. But if you are a socialist, argue for it. Don't run away from it. And also, another important aspect of this conversation, and the second term that's demonized or concept that's demonized, redistribution of wealth. I would like every single person in America that's a liberal, a progressive, anybody on the left wing of the political spectrum, I want you to actively stand up and make an argument for redistribution of wealth. We cannot let them win on that. And the reason is, every modern government does it, and it's good that they do it. It's a positive thing. Everybody's in favor of it. The question is, well, to what extent are you in favor of it? How much redistribution should you do? It's like the idea of sex. Almost everybody's in favor of it. Maybe there's a small group of asexuals around, and bless them, I got nothing against them, but almost everybody's for sex, and just the question is, well, how much sex should we be having? It's the same thing with redistribution of wealth. And if people say, like the conservatives do, we're against redistribution of wealth in that broad, generalized way, you say, fantastic, I had no idea you hated the fire department, you hate roads, you hate the cops, and you hate the military. I didn't know you hated the troops. Thank you for letting us know. I didn't know you hated the cops. I didn't know you hate law and order. Thanks for letting us know that. Because all of those things are redistribution of wealth. Government in general, in any way, shape, or form, is redistribution of wealth because you fund it through taxation. So we need to stand up and make an argument and say, not only are we for redistribution of wealth, we're for it in all the basic areas, prisons, fire department, roads, cops, the military. We are also for it when it comes to education. We are also for it when it comes to health care. And if you don't like that, well, you're the one that's wrong, because when you look at the systems around the world that function best, they do have redistribution in those areas because they are government functions in all of the civilized places except the United States of America. We are lagging behind on this issue, and we shouldn't be. And one of the big reasons why we are lagging behind is because people are not standing up and making this argument that I'm making to you right now. Enough with the bullshit. Take back our terms, take back our labels, because we believe in them. There's no reason to be ashamed of them. Stand up and tell people why you believe in them, and then guess what'll happen? You'll start changing hearts and minds, and you will control the terms of the conversation and the parameters of the conversation, which will make you, or allow you, I should say, to defeat your opponent more often.